Okay, so when just after my mom got pregnant, and my dad, my mother said we had to move from there, move to another place. We moved to Montreal, and when we got to the conjunction, now one of the things I didn't learn till I was much later in my life, my mom didn't want to be pregnant. She didn't want a baby. She didn't even like me the first 2 or 3 years of her life. And then her mom and dad died. All of a sudden, I wasn't liked or even wanted. So for all my growing up, not knowing these, I wanted to be close to mom. I wanted to be close to mom, moon, and Cancer, but I was getting rejected all the time. So how that translated later was that I would give everything to be with someone and project everything and throw everything in. And the minute they backed off a second, I would get paralyzed by being rejected, like by my mom. And I would fold. It would mess things up. So that formative time really had an effect on the other points. So my brother was born at the square. I was in grade 11 and my best friend for 2 years, my best friend for 4 or 5 years. I found him going out with my girlfriend of 2 years a week before the grad dance. That was a big disassociation and a big emotional. Then I got a job working at a office, and I started university out of that. But at that point, that's how you leave all your friends and all your people on. You have to go on your own. That was at that square. At the opposition, I moved to a farm, out of the city to a farm in Orangeville, and then to a farm in Pontypool. So I had the farm, I had the nature, but I wasn't really making enough money to get by. And at the same time, at the end of this period, I had to have my teeth. I had my teeth out, and the same day, I found my wife with another guy, and it was the separation of my wife. So that was another emotional rejection. So I had struggles with my Venus at each of these bends. Then at the next bend, I had a bookstore, and I rented a place with a girlfriend, and we got a place. And I lived in this place for 14 years. It was a studio, but at the same time, I went to sell the bookstore, and somebody took over the books. Then there was a flood, and there was things. And anyways, I got ripped off for the whole bookstore. So there's another big loss at a Venus. See, I have Venus on my IC in the fourth house, opposing business, opposing the midheaven. So anytime anything comes up for business, there's a cost. And things up personally, it comes and it doesn't necessarily fit in outwardly. Then when Saturn came back to conjunct itself, that was the first. I bought that place. I bought my first property at Willow Beach in the country by lake, and that was a new beginning. But it didn't hold itself either. It was more than I could hold. It was dependent on the two of us holding together, and when we stopped being that well together, it just didn't last. So each square, when I was at the square to Venus, next square to Venus, I'm part of NCGR. I'm part of the steering committee for AFAN. I'm in these executive positions, and I'm editor of a guide. I'm really established and really functionally accomplishing a lot. Probably because I didn't have a relationship at that time. I was really idealized in astrology. But even then, all the work that I did with the group, the group ended up becoming more American and more crystallized and not going the way I wanted. So I ended up having to pull out on my own and go my own and realize I didn't belong in that group, in those groups. Ooh, these are personal stories. Like each one you could take a whole night to talk about. But with the opposition, I had a nice big studio, nice big second floor, marble floors, marble. It was really a beautiful studio. Must have been about 2,500 square feet or so. And but I had to move. I'd been there for a few years, and then I had to move. They were changing the property. I had to move, and I moved to another warehouse, I had to fix it up. And I spent a lot of money to fix it up, but the guy never fixed the roof. And they fixed part of it, and it kept leaking. I couldn't open up the library, and I had to, whole legal situations came up. Had a big this, and because of that, I had to let go of a library I ran for almost 30 years. So that was a big one. In 2007, I let go of the library. I was building a wood hedge in the forest, but also I got poison ivy 2 or 3 times by being out in the woods. I kind of like that because the poison ivy is kind of like Venus rejected or resented. I touched this beautiful plant, and all of a sudden I got this poison ivy growing. I had to get rid of that. Then I had to learn how to be around it and not get it. So yeah, so the last one, I did a couple of big conferences, one in Edmonton, one in Toronto, and then I did a trip to China. I've been to China twice during the Venus on the Saturn on the Venus, and that was a great accomplishment. I was really appreciated. It was really good things, and then there was an undertow that was really not good at the same time. So it really was an emotional challenge that I had to recover, that set up new values for going before. I relied on some people that should not have been relied on, and there were some complications that came up. So this is my blah, blah, blah Venus life. Just quickly gone over, but just for want of an example, how are we doing for time? Yeah, okay. So Venus, it's your values, it's your emotions, but you want to see these starting points and opposite points, but really every bend is going to have an issue that challenges your values. So it's harder to see them you'll see them all as like not exactly happy or contented, or some pressure comes up around it. Sometimes you'll be working it hard and it'll work for you, but there'll be a cost in how much satisfaction you're having from it. And it changes what you like. So the conjunctions, you want to see the beginning by deciding what you want. For me, it happened at, what's that? For me, it happened when my brother was born, the first conjunction. I was only about 10 years old. It depends if it happened younger or different ages. Everybody has a very unique, different story as these things happen. One cycle of Saturn, it changes. It relates to every factor in your chart in different ways, and the textures of these experiences accumulate and become the psyche of who we are. So we see them all jump together, but it's important to take this time, because sometimes when you're working with someone, you really see distinctive, obvious factors repeating at each bend. Sometimes it's a little more convoluted, sometimes but the first key is, as soon as you're going to work with Saturn to Venus, you see Saturn's coming to Venus, take half an hour to work, 15 minutes, half an hour to work on the personal Venus, on the natal chart. Then go do the cycle. Watch the Saturn go around it. Don't worry about all the other planets. This is the one that you're having to get control on, be responsible. These are the ones where you're measuring and adjusting your values. How much pressure, how much work has to go in to get what you want? Whether you get what you want or don't what you want, is it worth? All of these factors come in on the Saturn. Other energies come in with other aspects. Other planets are making aspects too in their own scale, but you want to get this cycle anchored. So at the conjunction, you're really defining and starting in some way, making choices that set up a 30-year approach. The opposition, you're far away from, you're at the limits of it. Although specific circumstances change, and you may not always see mentally that this Venus thing I'm working with now was related to that. Eventually you begin to tie this together and see it. And as you do this, you get an integrity over time that helps you in going forward to dealing with the next Venus hits. Okay. Some people get mad and violent when they're discontent. Some people get depressed and really more, down. So there can be Saturn things. There can be other volatile things happening because of the person's reaction to Venus being triggered or restricted. But you're generally looking at not happy, not content, and kind of depressed or dissatisfied. And what are you going to do? If you're discontent, how are you going to get discontent? How are you going to get content? It's going to take effort. And you look at it, or do you just accept it? Oh, this is the part of the puzzles of life. The strongest aspects are the outer planets to the inner planets. So the moon, Mercury, yes, but harder to see. Moon, Venus, Sun, those are the most primarily reactive planets, and Mars. But when you start getting out from that, you're having more social things, and it's not so personally reactable, not so easy to predict. But because they come around, When Saturn comes along and hits Venus, going to hit it once, going to back up, go forward, back, retrograde, come back over it, go forward again. You're going to get 3 hits over a period of 6 months to a year with Saturn going back and forth over. So this is not, that same issue can come back 3 times to deal with it. Or some delays, or the same lack of money, or the same lack of satisfaction can be there for more or less the year with 2 or 3 critical points. So you're working on the critical points, but we're laying out all the critical times when they're there. We've got to put them in perspective to what phase you're coming from, where you're going to, and this will come as we go on. But right now, it's enough to just isolate these crisis times. All these crises, they're crisis times, emotional crises of values and choices. And because you're not getting what you want, you're being forced to have to decide, well, how would I get it? What can I do? Am I too old? Is it too late? All these ideas come up. The ideas are more tied with Mercury. The Venus is more the values, emotions. I don't feel beautiful. Do I fix it or do I just accept it? Or, depends how humble or how simple you live, or how dramatic or expensive or arrogant you live. How vain are we? That's Venus. Well, if you're being vain, what's Saturn going to do to vanity? It's going to put it down. It's going to limit you because of it. If you're envious, you're going to get more envious under Venus because you're going to have less of what you want until you learn to stop being envious. If you're lustful, you're going to be wanting too much and you're going to run into limits, or there's problems because of that. So the Saturn's going around, maybe building up the pressure, making the judgments and bringing these responsibilities around in our life. And by the time it gets in, it's time to assess or reevaluate or redefine your values. That's Venus. Then what values are being evaluated? Whoever I want, whatever I am, however your Venus has evolved and is working. I wouldn't try and define it more than that. It's like you're tuning in and you're observing how the person works. You can see 5 or 6 different layers that this could affect Venus. And for one person, Saturn comes along, it may hit one of those layers. Someone else may come up there and they may get all 5, it may be hitting all 5 of them. And that you have to observe. You can't know in advance how many layers or levels of Venus problems come up that have to be fixed. If it's a bunch or if it's one, it's still basically the same kind of advice. Budget, hold back, restrain, do without. Wait, Saturn, cautious advice. Work to get it yourself. Don't rely on other people. Like, it's a practical voice that's coming in here that we often think we can get around. Okay, so let's go to Mars.